Do a little tap dancing here. There's a problem with Caitlyn Jenner's studio. Something's going on. We're going to get her here in just a minute, but first I thought I'd do a little tap dancing for you myself, and we're going to do the news from the left a little early tonight. How about that? Happy Monday. We begin with Fox News' host Chris Wallace here on News from the Left tonight. Wallace had West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin on yesterday. Manchin, a Democrat in a heavily Republican, heavily Trump state, is in the process of, frankly, saving the country from a horrifyingly aggressive left-wing agenda. Ideas like federalizing our elections and mailing out ballots to everyone, things that would, of course, benefit Democrats and almost nobody else. But Chris Wallace seemed to think that Manchin was just standing in the way of progress by pushing back on these ideas from his own party. Take a listen.
If you were to keep the idea that maybe you would vote to kill the filibuster, wouldn't that give Republicans an incentive to actually negotiate? Because old Joe Manchin's out there, and who knows what he's going to do by taking it off the table. Haven't you empowered Republicans to be obstructionists? Aren't you being naive about this continuing talk about bipartisan cooperation?
Well, the president had some words on this. Never been a fan of Chris Wallace, as we know. He released a statement earlier today saying, why does Fox News keep Chris Wallace? His ratings are terrible. He's almost radical left. He was acknowledged to have failed badly as a presidential debate moderator. We all remember the first debate with Joe Biden. And so much else. Usually these are not the qualities of a long-term stay. It's interesting to note that this past Saturday, while networks such as Newsmax made it a point to carry President Trump's speech at the North Carolina GOP in its entirety, Fox couldn't be bothered to show more than just a few seconds of the president's speech on a Saturday night, no less, when they're not exactly running their top programming. Sticking with Joe Manchin for a second, the usual suspects also enraged by the moderate Democrats' latest moves. He's been very interesting these last couple of days. The liberal media taken aback this morning when the West Virginia senator wrote that he would oppose election reform and the filibuster. Democrats are mad as well. Here's Congressman Jamal Bowman of right outside New York City.
Joe Manchin has become the new Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, during Obama's presidency, said he would do everything in his power to stop Obama. He's also repeated that now during the Biden presidency by saying he would do everything in his power to stop President Biden. And now Joe Manchin is doing everything in his power to stop democracy.
Or maybe Republicans and even moderate Democrats realize the Democratic Party is going insane. Could be it, too. There was also some talk about Joe Manchin voting to keep Jim Crow alive, something like that. Yeah, not a ridiculous statement at all. Next up, CNN's Brian Stelter brought on White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki this weekend, and yet another example of CNN absolutely fawning over the Biden White House. The best part about CNN is it's so staggering to watch the difference between the last administration and this one. Stelter presented Psaki with what can only be described as a layup of an interview, softball question after softball question. Take a listen.
What does the press get wrong when covering Biden's agenda? When you watch the news, when you read the news, what do you think we get wrong? For other PR professionals who watch what you do, for journalists who watch what you do, what's your advice for them about trying to stay close to the truth in this world of lies? Is the relationship between the White House and the press corps now at least functional in ways it wasn't in the Trump years?
The problem with Stelter is that he pretends to be this media analyst, which, of course, would require you to have kind of a bipartisan view and look at both sides somewhat fairly. And he's just a flaming liberal. And that's the problem. And that's why his show is so stupid. Because it's one thing if you're going to have an opinion show. You're going to sit there, you're going to give your opinions. I'm Brian Stelter, I'm a liberal, this is how I think, stuff like that. That's fine. Do it all day. We have all these clowns do it. They do it all day. His show's not supposed to be that. And that's why his show is so terrible. Stelter isn't alone, of course. Reporter Andrew Feinberg in the White House briefing room posed this question to Jen Psaki. This actually took more than a minute for him to get to the point. We just put together a little bit of a time lapse of it to show you just how long this pandering question was. Take a look.
I wanted to ask you about counting the votes.
Yeah.
A number of Republican legislatures take voting and the counting in the hands of Republican state legislatures. This is certified President Biden's victory. This is what Democrats win close elections in 2022 and rigging or ignoring the counting of votes of the Democrat. What's he going to do to highlight this and find a solution?
Well, Andrew, it's a really important issue to raise.
I thought the guy on the left was going to fall asleep at some point. It took over a minute to get all that out, and it was basically just a pandering question. Just fun to watch. Election laws, of course, in this country were changed in the last election illegally in some cases. It's just a simple fact. State officials went around legislators, went around the way it's supposed to be done to change laws that undoubtedly made elections less secure and in ways that benefited Democrats. This just happened, whether people like to admit it or not. And the media is outraged that anyone is questioning those decisions, because those questions could potentially hurt Democrats, and the media is full of Democrats. It's as simple as that. Finally, a psychiatrist under fire for saying that she fantasized about killing white people during a Yale University lecture. Lovely woman. Dr. Aruna Kilanani made the remarks at the Yale School of Medicine on April 6th, adding that she'd walk away from the shooting of a white guy with a bounce in my step. Take a listen.
The fantasies of unloading a revolver into the head of any white person that got in my way, burying their body, and wiping my bloody hands as I walked away relatively guiltless, with a bounce in my step, like I did the world a favor.
It's kind of funny. A flyer promoting that talk and posted online showing the title of the lecture as The Psychopathic Problem of the White Mind. It also included some of the learning objectives, such as set up white people's absence of empathy towards black rage as a problem, and understand how white people are psychologically dependent on black rage. Yale, for its part, put out the most flaccid statement I've ever seen, saying her comments don't align with Yale. Clearly, they barely care. They probably already invited her back to speak next week. Nice girl. Stay with us. We're going to get Caitlyn Jenner, come hell or high water. That's up next. Stay tuned. Joining me now is Republican candidate for governor of California, Caitlyn Jenner. Caitlyn, it's good to see you. Thanks for doing this for us. Good to have you on.
I can't believe it. I finally made it to Newsmax. I'm doing great.
Well, it's good to have you here. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. This was going to flow a lot better because I started the show talking about Donald Trump. We spent a lot of time talking about the big speech on Saturday night he gave. You know, obviously, he's still probably the most powerful force in your political party. And as a more moderate Republican in a state like California, I just wanted to start off by asking you what you think of Donald Trump and what you think of his place in the Republican Party.
I'm still up there with the Republican Party. I think he did a good job, certainly with the economy until COVID hit. He did a lot of things I really agree with.
Okay.
But his messaging was just not good for the public. What I liked about him is he was a disruptor. He came in as an outsider and really kind of disrupted and changed the system. I feel the same way with California. I'm an outsider and a disruptor, a thoughtful disruptor, and I need to shake the system up here in California. We're losing this state. You know, 18,000 companies have left this state. People are leaving this state. We lost a congressional seat in Congress. The first time in 171 years of this state, we lost a congressional seat. People are really upset with Gavin Newsom. And all the bad things in California have accelerated under his leadership.
That's a fair statement. California is a mess. I love California. I lived there for almost 3 years. I've watched the decline myself. You're running to replace Newsom. I mean, let me just ask you this. Is it realistic to think that a Republican can win the governor's seat in that state? I mean, is it too far gone?
No, it's quite possible. Of course I can win.
Okay.
You start off with 99% name recognition.
That's true.
Rob, as you know, a recall election is different. Basically, started, they had to get 1.5 million signatures on the recall. They got 2.1 million. But eventually it was certified. It is all going to be a mail-in ballot. 22.1 ballots to registered